tie that into the game, but yet it manifested and ended up being something really fun and quirky and interesting about the game, where it's like, oh my God, underwater scorpions now. And it's like, this is terrifying. But anything can be a place where you pull influence from. And that's a prime example.
Like you guys, I've always marveled at designers because to me, like it's there's like a correlation to how like comedians are, right? They take facts but are able to kind of twist it in a way and make it unexpected, right? To get a laugh, but in game design, it's to make it interesting to engage, right? And it's always been a mystery, like, where are you guys coming from? Because like in art, I come from a background of art, art school. There's a lot of avenues, right, to become an artist. Online, it seems to be a very common trade within the industry to see like at least a clear track, right, to get in the industry. Right. With designers, it seems like you guys kind of grow from somewhere and then get together and be able to like create games. Like there's still to this day, it's a complete mystery. It's like if a student asked me how to become a game designer specifically, right, it's not very clear cut, right? Maybe there's a track from a level design, maybe, yeah, but like there's not really an avenue where everyone can point to and say that's how you do it. So to aspiring developers out there who wants to be design, who wants to start thinking this way, like what if you can dive deeper to like these methodology that you see that works for you, just being curious, what is it exactly do you feel like as a designer to keep your tools sharp? This is how you get in the industry, get designing, basically.
Curiosity is a great word that you just used, and it's such an important one because I think it ties into so much of what we do. We ask questions constantly. We're very curious people as designers. What's the best way to approach this? Or what's the best way to surprise people? What's something completely zany and unexpected that will just really like come as a delight and surprise? I have my latest theory is that designers are born of obsession. I think some of the greatest designers are people where there's just no other path for them. They're so absolutely passionate and obsessive with it that there's no other reality that they would accept. And I could say that's certainly true for myself. From the age I think that I could hold a crayon, I knew I wanted to make video games, and here I am, right? So I think if you feel passion for it, then you may be a prime candidate to do it. I get a lot of people asking me, how do I become a game designer? And ultimately, it comes back to one thing. If you want to make games, just make games. And people are like, oh, well, you make that sound so easy. But the truth of the matter is, if you are passionate and obsessive, you will find a way. When I was a teenager and I started driving my car, I don't recommend you do this, but I was 16 years old and I'm like, I will make a game out of anything I see anywhere. And so I'd go to the gas pump and I'd start pumping. I'd see the digits like tick up rapidly. And my creative brain, I'm like, how do I make this into a game? I'm like, I'm going to try to stop on $40 on the dot. And so I'm pumping the gas, the numbers are ticking up, and then boom, oh, I was 3 cents short. I lost, maybe next time. And then next time I go get gas, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to play the $40 game and I'm going to pump gas. And that used to be close to a full tank, believe it or not, God. But this is the way a designer thinks. Okay, so this is a like weird example, but it's that's just the way it is. Like I'll find anything and try to make a game out of it. And I think if you think you're one of those people that you're just really obsessed with, there's no other possibility for you, try making a game. Research it, teach yourself. There's so many resources now. People are so lucky. They have the resources I didn't have growing up. I couldn't dream of the resources people have, but you can go on YouTube and find like tutorials for just about anything you want to learn. And you can be self-taught and you can make a game. I've seen it done, and people have made successful games just in their own right, just learning by themselves, teaching themselves. Like it's their first game, and it's like people get hit on their first game, it can happen. So that's sort of a long-winded way to say, you can be self-taught. If you're passionate about it, there's resources out there. You can do it. It's possible.
I mean, it seems like you go outside and your brain is constantly thinking and applying these kind of principles that is innate with you as a game designer to like, how do I engage? Yeah. But like, I would love because there was this good amount of period where still ongoing, like Kickstarter makes headlines still with with their analog games, right? Their board games, their card games. I mean, so many Kickstarter campaigns ends up on the Target shelves. If you go to Target, you're like, whoa, man, I remember seeing Exploding Kittens. It was a huge thing.
Right. Yeah, that was a great one.
Yeah, like these applications that family, friends, game night, these kind of everyday applications. What are you seeing maybe on your personal level that obviously is bringing it back? Because making a digital game at least like takes years, takes months before you actually say something and actually see something, right? That happens on screen, right? What other things are you doing that kind of keep the mind sharp, dude? Because the satisfaction too is to see something complete. Delaying satisfaction all the time is probably not the best way to kind of like see if your design works, right? What are there
Right.
type of things that you're seeing that you're applying that you're like, hey, prototyping type of stuff that you're doing that you're feeling like, hey, these are principles that I would love to see more aspiring developers or even regular designers nowadays should do more often to kind of keep things sharp?
So there's this concept of game theory, and I think it applies across the board in the world of games. The same core principles that make the experience of something like a board game or any tabletop game or even like a choose your own adventure novel, like the same concepts apply across the board, can apply to games. And so I think if you want to make games, it's a great place to start would be pencil and paper games. You could experiment with that. And as you said, those could take off all over the place. There's a huge audience for board games and tabletop games and the sort of experiences that you can have without a screen. And a lot of that stuff can tie into the sort of games you can make on a screen as well. So if you want to get started in that realm, you totally can. And a little tidbit I might offer is a lot of the prototypes that we make, they don't always start on the screen either. There's a lot of times where we will make a game out of like moving around like pieces of paper. Granted, I don't know if for Yars there was a physical element, but we've built contraptions and we've had like things where there's like sliding paper to kind of simulate like a puzzle or something like that. I know for one of the Shantae games, I actually made a physical like prototype of like, how's this going to work where you have to like whip something to move like a piece around. And I physically like made these like scraps of paper and slid them on the sheet. And I used a pencil to like draw the path. And it was the quickest way for me to just physically like just build it. And then of course that goes into the game. So I think there's a way of creating prototypes outside of the screen, or even just doing rudimentary prototypes. One thing we did do for Yars was outside of the development of the hacking challenges within Yars Rising, I personally developed a sort of PC executable of like a remake of classic Yars Revenge with all the elements there. And what I just started doing was, what happens if you turn off this element? And I got rid of like the destroyer missile in the classic Yars Revenge that chases you around. How does it feel now? Okay, I got rid of the ion zone that you go charge in. What's the experience like now? And that was my own sort of way of prototyping it out. And ultimately, that wasn't the code or even the experience that ended up in the game, but it informed the development of that particular feature because I was able to prototype and explore and just try things out. So sometimes in development, you'll have to build something, whether it be on paper, and it's part of the process, or you just build a small prototype that proves out a simple concept, even if it doesn't end up being the foundation you build off of. It's all part of the creative thinking and development process. And as you mentioned, designers, sometimes their brain works a little bit differently. You're always thinking about these things and pulling influence from all sorts of different places. Embrace that. I think as a designer, if you want to be a successful designer, be open to that influence coming from anywhere.